Sitting up with the dead. If you ask me, he looks right natural, said Loretta Hubbard. It looks like he just walked in and laid down and closed his eyes, just as peaceful. Yes, Stuart Wiley and them do an awful good job, agreed Thelma Shively. It's a really pretty casket, too. It ought to be as much as Granny give for it. That's the simulated mahogany. The two women sat in folding chairs beside the casket, greeting folks as they filed solemnly by. Y'all, there's food set out in the dining room now. Help yourselves. I'm so sorry, said Virginia Carr with tears in her eyes. Well, Virginia, he had a good long life. He was a good man. I know in my heart that he's in a better place. Oh, yes, agreed Loretta Hubbard. There ain't no doubt about that. Where's Bill and Ronnie and them? Asked Dalton Carr. Oh, the men are all out on the front porch, she answered. Virginia, honey, I believe I'm going to step outside a minute and pay my respects. He squeezed his wife's arm and then turned and walked toward the door. Outside, the men were talking and smoking cigarettes. Bill Shively was telling about how he and Wilson Hubbard used to go coon hunting and how much Wilson loved it. He was telling about the time that Wilson stepped in a groundhog hole and broke his leg one night chasing the dogs. Ain't nobody ever loved to hunt more than Wilson, he said. He used to take me and Daddy, said Curtis Hubbard. What's the name of that one dog, that won night champion? That was Hubbard's Blue Bell, said Bill Shively. Now that was one remarkable animal, I'm here to tell you. She'd climb halfway up the tree. I never seen nothing to beat it in all my life. Lord, I remember that old dog, said Lee Shively. What do you say, Dalton? Said Bill Shively, throwing up his hand. How y'all boys? Ronnie, I'm awful sorry about your daddy. He was a mighty fine fellow. I'm sure going to miss him. Thank you, Dalton, said Ronnie Hubbard. I appreciate it. I know Daddy was awful fond of you and Virginia both. Is Russell coming tonight? He had to work this evening. He's coming tomorrow to the funeral. Here, Dalton, said Lee Shively as he handed him the jar of corn liquor. Have you a drink. Don't let Loretta and Miss Hubbard see you. They'll have a fit. Well, I don't see why, said Bill Shively. There weren't a soul that loved to drink a liquor more than Wilson. I've seen the time he could have drunk that whole quart by himself and not bat an eye, he laughed. Daddy could damn sure hold his liquor, and that's a fact. I remember back when we was young'uns, said Bill Shively. We drove to Richmond in my daddy's Hudson Hornet convertible. I don't know how much Wilson did drink that night. We went down to see Elvis. That was back before anybody knew who Elvis Presley was. It was when the Louisiana hayride came. We had 2 old girls with us. Hell, we didn't get home till 5 the next morning. I bet you didn't know that your granddaddy was such a wild man, did you, Curtis? You better hush, Bill, said Ronnie Hubbard. Mom and them are liable to hear you. The windows are open. They can't hear me for that fan going. Besides, they're busy talking. Hey, Bill, tell them about when you and Wilson used to run liquor, said Lee Shively. You and your granddaddy used to haul bootleg? Shoot, yeah, said Bill Shively. Me and Wilson and old Neville Coleman and a bunch of us used to run it for West Philpott and them. Me and your granddaddy used to carry it down to Winston most of the time. Now, you want to talk about a wide-open town, it was Winston-Salem. There was this one old place, a little drink house on 5th Street, right off of 311. You talk about a wild damn place, prostitutes and gambling and I don't know what all. That place really went through the liquor. Anyway, me and Wilson used to deliver there. One morning, old Wes came up to me and said, "Where the hell is Wilson? I ain't seen him in 3 days." I said I didn't have no idea. Well, that Friday he came dragging in looking like he was about half dead. Eyes all bloodshot, all pale and sick-looking. Come to find out he'd been shacked up with some woman down at that little place on 5th Street all week. Said she might not killed him. That was back before the damn revenue boys got a hold of Wes's brother, Connor. It was Connor Philpott that actually ran the still. Well, they carried him up to Rocky Mount, and that damned old Judge Basham gave Connor 6 years in the penitentiary, so Wes and them just shut down the whole operation. Is that when Daddy started driving for the Lovells? Asked Ronnie Hubbard. I reckon that was around '56, said Bill Shively. That's about the time Wilson started racing. Donnie and Frank Lovell had a garage over in Oak Level, and I mean to tell you those boys could build a damn race car. They loved Mercuries. That first car that Wilson drove down in North Wilkesboro was a '53, and that thing would flat out fly. You mean Granddaddy raced at North Wilkesboro? Said Curtis Hubbard. Shoot, yeah, he did. He done raced down there several times, as I remember. Oh, we went all over, Southside Speedway, Martinsville, Rockingham. He even went to Myrtle Beach. Old Wilson could drive a race car. The problem was that he drove like he did everything else, flat out. He didn't know no other way. Frank finally pulled him. Said he couldn't afford it. Said Wilson was wrecking too many of his damn race cars. After that, they give the job to old Bobby Underwood. Well, I sure didn't know Wilson Hubbard ever drove no stock car, said Dalton Carr. I always thought of Wilson as sort of a quiet, easy-going sort of guy. Hell yeah. He drove for the Lovell brothers for a couple years back in the middle '50s. Shoot, there weren't nothing quiet or easy-going about Wilson, not back then. One time, and this was after he was married to your mama, so for Lord's sake, don't breathe a word of what I'm about to say. Me and your daddy and a guy named Clement Blackwood drove down to Daytona to see the race. Ronnie, I reckon you was just a little thing. Anyway, Clement got tickets and we went down. We went out drinking the first night at some old bar down there and got in a damn fight with these boys from Alabama over something, and we all got thrown in jail. Missed the damn race and everything. Had to pay $300 apiece in fines to get out. That was the year that Leroy Yarborough won the thing, and we didn't even get to see it. It's hard to imagine Granddaddy getting into no fight, said Curtis Hubbard. Man, he had a temper back then, I ain't kidding. It didn't take nothing to set him off. I seen him beat Melvin Tabor once within an inch of his life, and you know Melvin was a great big man. Hell, Wilson didn't give a shit. Melvin was going after this little girl Wilson was with one night up at the Armory, and he just flat laid Melvin out. What do you reckon caused Granddaddy to change so much as he got older? Well, sir, the way I figure it, a man has just got so much vinegar in him, and once you get it out of your system, you calm down. Just then the screen door opened and Loretta Hubbard stuck her head out. Y'all boys better come on and get you something to eat, she said. We'll be in directly, Loretta, said Lee shyly. What are y'all doing, anyway, besides smoking and drinking, she said, smiling. We've just been remembering Daddy, said Ronnie Hubbard. He was a mighty fine man, said Loretta Hubbard. Yes, ma'am, said Bill Shively. He always was.